Eric's response to Guy's comments regarding what President Obama said last night?
Well, I thought it was a lousy speech.
Okay.
I did not see the charismatic orator that we knew from the last election, and I do think that we'll see a lot more of him. I think that this whole issue of that seems to get dragged into every conversation, at least for the last, I don't know, 7 to 10 days on same-sex marriage was, I said it last week, a couple days before he came out with an opinion, that he had no choice. He had to come out with an opinion now. I don't think that was planned whatsoever. That was Joe Biden being Joe Biden, and the president having the choice whether to be seen as a leader or somebody who's still evolving over an issue. His entire presidency, he chose to lead, but his hand was forced. I don't think there's any way around that.
All right. Since we're on the gay marriage topic now, there is a New York Times, CBS News poll that asks people about President Obama's announcement and whether it was for political reasons or because he thinks it's right. 67% said they believe that President Obama came out with that announcement mostly for political reasons. Only 24% said it was mostly because he thinks it is right. Guy, do you agree with that?
Yeah, and by the way, that New York Times poll is fascinating today. Not only Mitt Romney up 3 overall, also leading now among women, which is a really big deal. But to your question, Patti Ann, I think it's actually a combination of both. I think President Obama believes in gay marriage. I think he has for a very long time. That was, in fact, his stated on-paper position as early as 1996. And then he switched to oppose same-sex marriage when he was running for statewide office in Illinois and then for president. And then now that he's elected and after the Joe Biden sort of gaffe, he couldn't get away with the evolving thing anymore. So he evolved back to his original position, which is in favor of same-sex marriage, which I think is both a politically calculated move, because I agree with Eric, he had no choice, and he was going to raise a ton of money. He was at a fundraiser last night with Ricky Martin and then making a lot of money off of this, but it is fraught with some political risk as well. So I would personally vote, all of the above. It was, he believes it, and it was political.
Yeah, the political risk that Guy is talking about, Eric, it's a big risk. You have people saying, when they were asked after the poll to elaborate more, and they said, obviously the president has concluded that more Americans approve of same-sex marriage, so he thinks this will help him win the election. But in reality, the polls show 38% of Americans support same-sex marriage. 24% favor civil unions, but when you eliminate either one of those as an option, the opposition to same-sex marriage rises to 51%. And as you know, states have...
You know what? I think that no matter what, and President Obama did answer the question this way, I don't think he had a choice, and personally I feel good that he showed some leadership and said what he thought, because that's what I thought he thought all along. I was a little bit taken aback that he's never taken a stance. Biden forced him. But he didn't make that decision because he was going to get votes. I think net he loses votes, and that's what most of the polls show. So that's probably why he was hedging so long. I think that that's the greatest gripe that we have, Democrats have with Obama, is he looks at the polls. He makes decisions by consensus, by the numbers. Everybody else makes the decisions. We want a leader. I want a leader. I want somebody to say what they think.
Well, the other question obviously related to gay marriage is whether it's a federal issue or a state issue. 32 states have outlawed it. There is this Federal Defense of Marriage Act, which we're asking about in our question of the day today. And we've got so far 69% of those responding say no, the Defense of Marriage Act should not be repealed. Yes, 23% say it should be repealed. But, it's hard to say whether the people are opposed to gay marriage or whether they want it to be a state decision. Guy, how much does that play into this, state rights versus federal?
Well, I think it's interesting when you saw President Obama give that interview, sort of that hastily arranged interview to Robin Roberts at ABC News, he did stress that he is in favor of states' rights on this particular question. Of course, that came the day after North Carolina, a state he's trying to win again. I think he's going to have trouble there, voted by a 20-point margin to ban all forms of same-sex unions, including civil unions, which in my book was a little bit too far. I don't think I would have supported that myself, but that's what the people of North Carolina did. And so I'm a little curious, when you hear the president casting this question as a civil rights issue, I don't think he's being completely honest because, look, would Barack Obama have been in favor of, you know, states deciding Jim Crow laws? No. I think that he sees a distinction that I think most Americans see as well, and I think it's tough for him to kind of square that circle in some ways. When he's in front of gay groups, you want to say this is a civil rights issue, but when he's still trying to win votes from a whole lot of people who don't support same-sex marriage, he's saying, but let's leave it up to the states. It's a little contradictory.
Yeah, and speaking of what he says when he's in front of gay rights groups, as we mentioned, he did speak last night at this fundraiser for LGBT supporters. And let's listen to what he had to say on the subject of gay marriage last night to that group.
No, the announcement I made last week about my views on marriage equality. Same principle. You know, the basic idea, I want everybody treated fairly in this country. We have never gone wrong when we expanded rights and responsibilities to everybody. That doesn't weaken families, that strengthens families.
All right, Eric, your take on all that.
Well, look, today, when you're giving a speech, you know, every other hour, that's being filmed, that's being broadcast, that's being picked apart, anybody who speaks is going to play to the audience that they're speaking to. But as long as the message don't contradict each other, as long as you're not saying yes in one spot and no in another spot, I think you're going to see a lot of this in the next 6 months.
Guy, what about the fact that he's talking about just extending the same rights to everyone, marriage equality, the terminology he's using there?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting term because that, of course, is the phraseology that gay marriage supporters have been using now for a long time that the president didn't use until just, 2 days ago. He picked up on it. And again, he's saying fairness, equality, this is a civil rights issue, but if states like Ohio and Michigan and Florida and Virginia and North Carolina, places that I have to win, want to ban it, states' rights. I wonder, I'm sure gay rights activists would say it's better than it was before. We have a president of the United States symbolically coming out in support of us, but he's definitely riding the fence still, just in a slightly less cynical way than he had been for the last 4+ years.
Well, there's no question about it. Gay rights activists will definitively say this is a great thing. They have the President of the United States who has finally given, the thumbs up, his personal opinion. So no doubt they're very pleased about that. What happens from here, that will be interesting, if anything.